Andy Dennison,
Present.
Ben Vitale,
Present.
Mark Farrell,
Present.
Paul Pinkney,
Here.
Elaine McNabb Coleman,
Present.
Joseph DeForest,
Present.
Terry Baxter,
Aye.
Joseph Bennett,
Here.
Frank Reginelli,
Here.
Patrick Mahonik,
Here.
Timothy Lattimore,
Here.
Michael Didio,
Here.
Ryan Foley,
Present.
Keith Batman.
Here. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand for a moment. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have one proclamation that has been presented earlier. Now, have the public be heard? There was a sign-up sheet. Are there people that are not on this sheet that wish to speak? You may make the decision later. You don't have to sign up in advance. But I just thought I would ask. We have a number of people, not as many as I thought we might have, so I don't think we're going to have terrible time pressures. But I do want to remind everyone of our rules of address. Ask that you, of course, be respectful, allow everyone to be heard. Should limit your remarks to about 3 minutes. What will happen is at the end of 3 minutes, our deputy clerk will notify you that 3 minutes is up, and what we ask is that you wrap up your comments as quickly after that as possible. So I think the first person.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I have someone from my district that I would like to grant privileges for.
Yeah, I think he's on the list.
Is he? Okay, great.
Yeah. So the first person on this list is Mr. Budeman.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen of the legislature, I was elected district attorney to protect this community, and it's something I take seriously. The top priority has always been prosecuting violent felonies and violent crime. But while prosecuting narcotics cases, we found that many drug dealers were collecting public assistance benefits. Basically, the people we were going after were stealing from both the taxpayers and those who were in need. We felt strongly something needed to be done about it. We compel taxpayers to give their money, their hard-earned income, to the government. We therefore have an obligation to protect it. The tax dollars should be valued and appreciated, used for their intended purpose, and again, protected. This grant gives us, it's a gift. It's a tool from the state to assist us. My apologies, I should have turned that up before I came in here. I'm so sorry.
It's a good reminder, thank you.
I've heard people say they care about prosecuting public assistance fraud. But if you refuse this grant, you deprive me of the tools to do it. I've heard people say we should reject the grant because there is no need. There's always already a system in place to combat this fraud. This system is not new. This plan to screen out fraud has been in place for years. And while Case Integrity does a good job of screening applicants against databases, it is ineffective in stopping the types of fraud that we actually prosecute with the program. The fact is that last year, we prosecuted over 100 cases that were missed in the screening process. So that plan has proven to be ineffective with these cases. I submit it's naive to believe that drug dealers, during an intake interview with DSS, will disclose undocumented income and therefore be barred from benefits. As a prosecutor, it's my experience that people who lie, people who steal from taxpayers, people who take funds from other people truly in need will continue to lie until confronted with evidence. So there's simply no way that DSS could know the information in advance and therefore refuse or stop benefits until we prove they lied. This grant not only deters fraud by prosecuting those who commit it, it does so at no cost to the county taxpayers. It's a win-win. At the last meeting, Ms. Sinclair claimed the program lost $20,000. I strongly disagree. Ms. Sinclair chooses to ignore 62,000 in DSS billings that were generated in 2015. The fact that DSS refused to pay their bill for 2015 does not mean it was not earned. If you do work pursuant to an agreement and someone fails to pay, it does not mean you didn't earn it. It just means you need to resolve the issue of payment. We have an issue that needs to be resolved. DSS has given me a letter last Tuesday claiming that this page was the reason they had not paid their bill. It does not apply to the district attorney's office. That letter was forwarded to the county attorney to address the outstanding bill issue, and I have a copy of it here. I've sent it out to you folks. Even though I strongly disagree that this program lost money last year, playing along for a minute, if we say we did lose $20,000 last year, and you accept this $107,000 grant today, you save $35,000 from taxpayers. That's a net positive of $15,000 in Cayuga County tax dollars. As legislators, you not only have the difficult task of overseeing a big budget, but you're also tasked with working on ways to bring in revenue to our county. This $35,000 that we don't have to spend of Cayuga County tax dollars, or $15,000 if you want to look at it that way, you are saving them by accepting the grant. And the grant brings in $321,000 over the next 3 years. There's no more applications. It's a 3-year cycle. We're guaranteed. If we refuse it, we can't reapply until 2018. If the grant's accepted, we will be applying for additional grants and working through those issues with DSS over their payments. Those revenues should cover the cost of the program for the remainder of the year. We can re-examine all these funding issues in May or June and shut down this program without a single Cayuga County tax dollar being spent. This grant is in use in 29 counties in New York State. Every one of those counties that was fortunate enough to get this grant has accepted and implemented it. In fact, over the history of this grant since 2004, not a single county has rejected or refused that grant. They have all accepted it. Why would we be the only county not to accept $107,000 to help us prosecute crime in Cayuga County? I question why that is. This should not be a political issue. In my 2 decades with this county, I have not heard of a single time that we rejected a grant. It costs this county nothing to accept this grant. If we refuse this county, it costs $35,500 of county taxpayer dollars. That's a lot of money. That's a police car. This grant is a privilege. It is not owed to us. Are we really going to tell the state that $321,000 isn't enough money and refuse this gift to the county taxpayers? We cannot in one breath talk about unfunded mandates from the state to us and in the next breath tell them to keep their money. The fact is, we have come in budget my office every year since I was elected. In 2015, we're $58,000 under budget without considering that $62,000 that we billed DSS. Okay, if we refuse the grant, we're throwing away $35,000 of those dollars. That's enough. Let's strike that. And you're denying me the ability to protect the taxpayers of this county. I am very happy. There's been a question of whether I'd be willing to consider. I will consider absolutely any option. Cutting revenue or expenditures under the grant, doing other things, moving positions around. I will consider absolutely everything. There's nothing, as far as I'm concerned, off the table. If we accept the grant, we can move forward. We can cut it tonight if you want. But the decision tonight is very simple. Accept the grant that costs us nothing and give us time to look at the program, or refuse a grant and write a check for $35,000 from county taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person on the list is Mr. Rosencrantz.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today. My name is Carl Rosenkrantz, and I live at 11 East Genesee Street. I was planning on doing a good cop, bad cop routine with my boss today, but I think he pretty much hit the nail on the head with most things that had to be said. And I had a nice script written out, but I'm decided to forego the script. I'm going to go rogue tonight. I was fired at 5 o'clock this afternoon. I'm the prosecutor who did the car prosecutions in this county. I was really, hoping I was available all day today to take any questions anyone had about the grant or about what kind of happens to these cases as they go through the pipeline. Because I think a lot of misinformation has been spread about this, that we're trying to demonize low-income people, we're trying to give them criminal histories, and we're trying to basically force them to live their lives with the stigma of having a conviction, and that, in most cases, is not accurate whatsoever. There have been criminal convictions, of course, as with all crimes, but we have worked hard on a case-by-case basis to evaluate and fairly come to conclusion with these cases. And as you know, none of these cases have ever gone to trial because we have come to a fair and successful resolution on these cases. I come tonight with a message of hope and optimism. I think that there are people here in this big chamber who are dead set against the CARP grant for whatever reason, and that's their own. But I think there are enough people here who are open-minded and understand, as District Attorney Buhlman just said, that this grant is a gift, and this is a gift that won't come again. $107,000 is very important to combat crime in this community, and the CARP grant itself, I think that it's been equated with welfare fraud and public assistance fraud, and that's not what this grant is entirely about. Tax fraud, workers' compensation fraud, unemployment insurance fraud. These are the bigger frauds that our office has started to pursue. And the way you pursue these frauds, you make connections with the state agencies that get these cases, and they refer them to us, and we go from there. We work on these cases, we prosecute them, and we bring people to justice. Criminal prosecution is not supposed to be profitable. As you know, our job as prosecutors, they give us a manual every year that says our job is to do the right thing. And prosecuting public assistance fraud, prosecuting large-scale tax frauds, that's the right thing. And I'm optimistic this chamber tonight will do the right thing and vote to accept the CARP grant and allow the District Attorney's Office to continue to do the right thing and prosecute crimes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, it's not clear to me if there's someone named DS or if this is just a scribble. Oh, that's right, DS. Okay, it was just one name. Okay, thank you. So is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Please.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the legislature. My name is Brian Bowersfeld. I am currently a resident of the town of Senate. I've grown up in Cayuga County. I lived here my whole life. I was a former member of the district attorney's office. I worked there for many years under Mr. Buhlman. I am the former prosecutor of welfare fraud and public assistance fraud, as well as unemployment fraud and other frauds committed against the state, including tax fraud. I think another misconception that seriously bothers me is that this is deemed to be a grant solely targeted at people committing welfare fraud. That is by far not even close to being accurate. This is a crimes against revenue prosecution. That includes a number of areas that people are stealing money and abusing hard-earned tax dollars that are being paid into programs to help people in need. And the bottom line is, as a resident of this community, as a taxpayer who not only pays county taxes, but state and federal taxes, I have a huge problem with this grant being denied. The other issue I have with this is I recognize a lot of your faces because I was here in this exact same position a couple of years ago. And I had to come to you and make an impassioned plea for you to fund the prosecution of crimes against revenue. And the resounding answer that was given to me by the same people who had their line drawn in the stand and their feet set against crimes against revenue was that we don't want to fund it. Go get funding from the state. Go apply for a grant. We did. We received it. Not only did we receive it, we were one of the smallest counties to ever receive that consideration because of the hard work we had dedicated to crimes against revenue. That was an acknowledgement from the state. And trust me when I say this, I've been to numerous trainings with district attorneys and assistant district attorneys and tax department employees and people from all over the state who are concerned about this issue. I remember sitting in a training and hearing one of the cases that we had pursued being cited during a CLE program statewide and commended for the innovative approach that we took to going after drug dealers who were using welfare fraud. That is now actually a more common practice across the state now. So again, as a taxpayer, as a member of this community, it would be a horrible mistake to make a hasty decision and to turn away funding that the people that opposed this last time told us to go get a state grant. Thank you.
Thank you. So, does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, so thank you for those comments.
Minutes for approval, 1/26/16.
Could I have a motion to dispense? Thank you. Second? Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Dr. Duran.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening. First, want to just thank and recognize Trustee Camardo for joining me this evening. Just a few updates in addition to my written report. You may have seen recently in the news, to celebrate some of our student accomplishments, our nursing class 2015 received, we had a 100% pass rate on the nursing licensure exam for the first time through for 2015. So, certainly our faculty and our students really should be commended for the effort that goes into. I think we were one of two institutions or two community colleges across the state that actually had that achievement. We've been celebrating that over the last couple of weeks. We also are seeing tremendous amount of growth and not only opportunities for this spring or this year, but also for the future, working with our high schools in our Cayuga Advantage program that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And we're really trying to have a kind of an intentional and focused effort, working with regional high schools on identifying new courses for college credit to really enhance and diversify the curriculum of the high school. And Sarah Yaw, who's been coordinating those efforts on our campus, has done a tremendous job. And we'll be looking to really look at more intentional ways to build upon not only our P-TECH program that we have with the Auburn School District and Advanced Manufacturing, but looking at other alternatives to connect people to explore careers and gain college credentials early on in their growth. So we're seeing, again, almost double-digit increases percentage-wise when it comes to credit hours this year in our Cayuga Advantage program. This month, our actually College Board of Trustee meeting got pushed back a week, so it'll be tomorrow night. And one of the main items on the agenda tomorrow night is there'll be an audit presentation from fiscal year 2014-15 and approval from our board. So we'll be able to give a more detailed update next month. And also, the college is in the process of working with the FSA to look at exploring the expansion of our child care services for students and for. One of the things that I recognized early on is that our program currently supports really people as they get ready for pre-K and older, but not really an infant and toddler program, and is currently focused primarily on the academic calendar. And we have been working with our Faculty Student Association at ways to potentially expand that to be able to offer child care for infants and toddlers, ideally with the ability to support students and be able to support student learners in a way that we haven't been able to in the past. So it's in the exploration phase at this point, working with our trustees, working with our FSA on seeing if we can accomplish that in the near future. But we're hopeful. We know that it's been a need, and we're also we want to be responsive to that need. So other than that, you'll see in my written report a mention of some healthcare cluster build-outs in our Fulton campus. We have a partnership, a unique partnership with City BOCES in Oswego County, where really we've consolidated our efforts for adult education, for career and kind of non-credit training, and not compete with one another. And that partnership is looking to have some improved spaces to support healthcare cluster, which essentially, I mean, that would be, you know, nursing assistant, medical assisting, kind of LPN, CNA programs. And it's just, we're looking to have the labs in our River Glen campus, and that lab will be really built out and look to be open for this summer to be able to bring classes from our other facility over on Broadway into the River Glen campus. So it's an exciting time to really be able to centralize our services in Oswego County, and really to kind of put a better spotlight on that partnership with City as we kind of gear up to focus on our workforce development. We're still waiting from the state on another on a grant opportunity that we applied for SUNY 2020, a capital project to replicate the Advanced Manufacturing Institute, the lab that we opened here back in January in Auburn, to look at the possibilities of creating a lab up in the Fulton campus as well. So it's really it's an exciting time for us as we're trying to really demonstrate our responsiveness to community needs and certainly to student needs, and to reduce these barriers for access to higher education, which is, some of you know, if you've gotten to know me, is a passion of mine. So with that concludes my formal report, both written and otherwise.
Thank you.
Question?
Are there any questions? Mr. Lattimore.
On our list tonight is, we're sending the state a message about the gap elimination, you know, the underfunding of our high schools. And I know that the formula works against you too with the state funding. Is there any movement by your association at all to reinstate that money?
Well, the gap money specifically, we haven't been as much focused on as we have been with the regular base aid funding. The current executive budget as it stands today is flat funding for community colleges in particular. The NICAP group, the New York State Community College Association of Presidents, is asking for an increase of $285 for base aid, as well as to look at inclusion of the other additional investment funds for competitive grant opportunities. That's where much of our advocacy will be focused as we go on. We'll be certainly, as it gets solidified, we'll be coming to you, and we'll also be for support, but we'll also be working with the state representatives here as well. So from the SUNY perspective, we've been really solidifying the strategy for this year's budget cycle and having preliminary conversations, but much of our focus has been on state-based aid to ensure that we can kind of keep tuition as low as possible, but also be able to continue to be as responsive and as agile as we can when it comes to program development.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Committee reports or reports from individual legislators? Mr. Didio.
Thank you. One announcement by the Owasco Watershed Lake Association in regards to what's called March to Lake Day. It will be held March 5. It's usually at the college in the auditorium. This year it will be at the Auburn Public Theater. It's a Saturday. It begins at 9 a.m., runs to roughly 12:30. There's 3 presenters, and I believe that these 3, a couple of them have been there before, but this combination is probably the best in 5 years. So the aula is requesting the legislature to come and learn a little bit about the water quality of Owasco Lake. Secondly, in discussion with the Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services Subcommittee of the County Community Service Board, we continue to look for answers to the problems that we're facing today. Obviously, number one is heroin and everything else that goes along with it. And we're just moving forward with that. Other than that, anyone has any questions, they can email me at any time. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Lattimore.
Mr. Chairman, Capusa met this month, as usual, once a month. I think some of us were at the Association of Counties, and we saw one of the luncheon by the state where the governor has a revision on the energy highway. So I think we're positioned very well to accept some of those monies that are coming down. But anyways, Capusa Board selected or secured fee proposals for energy sector legal counsel from Duncan, Weinberg, Ginzer, and Pembroke, PC, a well-respected DC law firm specializing in municipal electrical utilities, state utility commission, and electrical power and natural gas markets. Two, the Capusa Board authorized a legal service agreement with an initial retainer of $5,000 for DWG&P to develop a petition to the New York State Public Service Commission related to activities similar to developing a community net metering program, which will save everybody some money, and community choice aggregate program. Three, this work is important first step to establish Capusa's authority with the PSC to define rate structure and tariffs necessary to participate in local energy markets and respond to potential economic development projects in coordination with CETA and their industrial prospects. Capusa continues to work closely with CETA on securing, there's one project on Genesee Street for Marinara. I don't know whether the council has seen any of that, but there was a presentation by Mr. Fish regarding this project, which is going to be a large energy user at the Cayuga County site, and position the agency to be responsive to the project-specific energy needs of this potential industrial development and job creation project. And the last thing, success with Project Marinara will allow Capusa and CETA to leverage significant energy initiatives to existing and future industrial development projects. And also, as a legislator, Mr. Chairman, I did participate in the high school heroin awareness issue, and I'd just like to give a shout out to Amy Cox, who she had to push hard to the school board in order to have that presentation. And I'd also like to extend to the families. There was a lot of personal testimonies at the high school, and hopefully anybody in the audience, hopefully that they'll see the real sickness, the real death that these drugs bring to family members when they're not around. And I know that you were at Hoops Park, and along with Mr. Didio was at Hoops Park. It's a sad thing when our youth are dying. And at the Association of Counties, I did say to our Senator Schumer that I'd like to see one of our mothball project or jails, such as Butler Shot Camp, to be reopened. And I talked to Mr. Cacco the other day in regards to this same issue, and see whether or not we can take these individuals, not give them any kind of a label or incarceration, but once they enter the program, that they would be there for a year so they can get some distance away from their addictions. So I hope that as a chair, we can bring that forward to our elected officials and see if we can reopen that, because beds are, you can't get in. And our kids are dying in the street.
Yeah, well, if I might suggest, Mr. Didio, might you take that idea forward to the Community Services Coalition and the task force?
That's parole, Mr. Chairman.
No, he's talking about the converting one of the existing
Mothballs.
minimum
And
minimum
we've
facility
already
for
pushed that forward. We're just waiting for the answer to go.
Okay, great, good.
Thank you.
So it's in process. Good,
You
thank
ask and you get it. That's it.
Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find. So,
I have trouble hearing back.
oh,
there.
I'm sorry, yeah. Any other reports from legislators? Okay, thank you. Madam Administrator.
Thank you. You have my report in the box. I don't really have much in the way of update to it. It's been a short time since it was done before. I did want to mention, however, that tomorrow morning at the department head meeting at 10:30 a.m. will be a demonstration of the OpenGov.com program. You're all certainly welcome to come and observe. It's scheduled to be about half an hour so that hopefully people will have a chance to see it thoroughly. So, and I would remind the department heads that they should attend because the legislature has asked for your feedback on it. So it's going to be tough to feedback if you don't see it. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the administrator? Okay, good. Chairman's report. When Mr. Lattimore mentioned that I went to the HEO program in Hoops Park, it was very moving, very well attended. It's an important topic. I don't know. I don't have the solutions, but we certainly need to keep our focus and our eyes on it. I also had the opportunity to bore the Auburn Rotary Club this month. I think I presented a program that I think will result in me never being invited back, which is always the goal. Not something that is exactly part of the chairman's report, but just did one report quickly. That our committees for the capital planning, budgeting, the broadband communication are moving forward. Each of those committees is working in their area so that we actually will accomplish some hopefully significant things by the end of the year. And so I'm happy to report that. We'll have more on that as the year develops. One idea that's come up in the communication group is, when appropriate, to hold committee meetings at locations outside of Auburn, so somewhere in the county where several of us live. So what we're thinking about is that if there are particular places within your community, particularly in the county, that are of interest, or places that people should be aware of but perhaps not, might be a good opportunity, a good place for one of our committees to meet. That, of course, is up to the chair of the committee, but the point is that it would be good to identify places that would make sense. So if you have places in the community that you think would be a great place for the committee meeting, get those to either Mr. Dennison, Ms. McNabb-Coleman, Mr. DeForest, or myself, and we'll kind of pass them along to the chairs so that when an opportunity comes up, the chairs can consider having the meetings out in the county so people can see us and realize that we actually exist, we do things as a group, and we're not a fiction. So keep that in mind. Finally, on negotiations in several areas progressing, and if you noticed on your agenda, we will have an executive session at the end of this meeting to discuss where we are and with several of those negotiations, have some reports and get some input. So I think that's it for my report. Does anyone have any questions of me? Mr. Lattimore.
Mr. Chairman, in regards to relocating for meetings, I'd also like to see us, maybe in the summertime, take this whole body to maybe someplace in the north, someplace in the south, so that some of the other communities can participate in our ledge meeting.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to know, with our budgeting, are we going forward with the public safety building? Do we know where that stands? Could you give us an update in regards to what it's going to cost us?
Yeah, we're in
forward?
active discussions about the direction for that. At this point, we do not have cost numbers from the city, so I can't share
it's
those
still live?
numbers. Yes, it's still live, still in play, still in discussion. And I personally still hope that we are able to participate. I think it's a great opportunity to collaborate, and I think there's great opportunity if not to save money, and I would hope we could save money, but at the very least to improve communication and cooperation. So yes, it's absolutely still alive. Mr. Dennison.
Just something for Mr. Lattimore on that whole communications thing, taking it out to different areas. One of the things we discussed was if something in your district, big was happening, that kind of coincided with having a committee meeting out there.
Yeah, or the full edge, right?
Yeah, or the full, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, you know,
Right.
some, a project that's being completed and it's in, you know, that's kind of what we were getting at with that.
Yeah, so look forward, hopefully we'll have the opportunity to start, maybe in a little way this year, but to get started, see how it works. It's a good idea. Mr. Foley?
Yeah, as part of that, I know we discussed, making sure that it was easily accessible and also talking with legislators to make sure that, they were going to attend. I know that I'm on some boards where they have them throughout the county, and they often have a problem with quorum, at those meetings. And so if we start having different meetings throughout the county, and we can't make quorum, that presents an issue. So it has to be very committed to, as an idea by the full body, if we are going to go that route.
Yeah, thank you. Ma'am?
If I might. I just wanted to ask Jay, since he's here, the Director of Probation, are the arrangements for meeting over in the probation area going forward for, I think it's judicial and public safety?
Yes, they are. I sent an email to the clerk of the ledge earlier today, I think. I talked to Jack Koulis, who's in charge of security for the courthouse. He does not see any reason for courthouse security to be present. Probation personnel will be there. We'll let members of the legislature and the public in the back door, closest to the elevator and the stairs. A member of the probation staff will be up on the 3rd floor to direct people to the department. We'll make everyone as comfortable as we can.
Thank you.
I assume, if I may ask, I assume comfortable as you can, I assume that means you'll have refreshments?
Refreshments in a probation sense, Mr. Chairman, can be a little.
Oh, okay, never mind, you're right.
Experience for everybody?
Thank you. Okay, any other questions, Mr. Lattimore?
Well, I just want to follow up with Suzanne. Could you give us a financial impact of losing the courthouse revenues and other revenues and leasing from the city in regards to the public safety building, so that we can budget in the future as to what our needs are going to be?
Right, well, that's
financially?
certainly going to be part of our considerations, but we don't have final numbers on what that would be. So it's going to be in the plans, though, relative to whatever activity takes place. It's hard to plan for a future that's so uncertain.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a number of appointments and reappointments. If I may ask that these...
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Would graciously ask to waive the reading of the other appointments and reappointments.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Bennett, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Is that make a vote on it? That we could vote on it?
Yeah.
You would. Thank you. Okay, now, communication announcements. Could I have a motion to waive the reading of these? Mr. Didio?
I would also ask to make a motion to waive the reading of the communication and announcement.
Thank you. A second? Mr. Dennison, thank you.
I think it was-
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Thank you. Now on to our monthly resolutions. Mr. Farrell.
Chairman, I'd like to bring forward our regular monthly resolutions, 1A and 1B. They've been through committee and they've been approved.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to present as a bundle WM1 and WM2. They've also been through committee and approved.
Any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Health and Human Services.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to present HH 1 through HH 15 as a bundle. They've all been through committee and passed, unless there's any that people would like separated.
Anything anyone wants separated? Any questions? Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Government Operations?
Chairman, I'd like to bring forth GO1 and GO2 as a bundle. They have been through committee and passed.
And this is with the amendment that's made at Ways and Means?
Correct.
Mr. Tucker? Mr. Whitman,
I just have a question of what the amendment was. I didn't get a chance to read the resolution as amended.
You want me to read it?
Yes, if you would, please.
Was put in and resolved that the position be filled for 2016, but gets reviewed December 31st, 2016, to see if it is a position that is needed for the next year, 2017, or not.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Planning.
Mr. Chairman, planning has 3 resolutions that have been through committee and passed and seek your approval. I'll offer as a bundle.
Thank you. Does anyone want any of these separated? Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Public Works?
Mr. Chairman, Public Works has 7 resolutions that have gone through both committees and have passed both committees. I'd like to present them as a bundle.
Does anyone want any of these separated? Very good. Anyone have any questions? Yes, Mr. Pinckney.
Just as I asked the Ways and Means, what is the final paving number approved? Anyone have that by any chance?
Do you have that, Sheila?
The dollars?
The paving number?
Number, the dollars for the paving and
Is it in the
surface
resolution?
treatment.
Thank you.
How much is it?
I think George did.
2.5.
Oh, 2.5,
Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Judicial and Public Safety?
Mr. Chair, we have 6 resolutions. I would like to bundle 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. JP3 was defeated at Ways and Means. So I offer 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 as a bundle.
Would anyone like any of these separated? Does anyone have any questions on any of these? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have 2 legislative.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Baxter.
I'd like to make a motion to bring JP3 back to the floor.
If we could wait until we get through the
Certainly will.
agenda, then we'll do that, yeah. So we have 2 legislative agendas.
Yep, pledge 1 and 2.
Yeah. Are there any questions on these? Can we bundle these? Anyone object? Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Sir, I think so.
I would like to make a motion to bring JP3 back to the floor. I'd like to do that with an amendment, and would ask that the amendment will have a lot of impact, I think, on the discussion. Possibly the discussion could wait till after that. It's up to you.
Since you're bringing it back, I think you can bring it back with the amendment, and that will be the motion.
I'll second that.
So, well, I think we need the full motion. So what's the change in the motion that
With the
you're
amendment,
proposing?
you want it now?
Yes, we'll
Okay.
just make that part of the
The
motion.
amendment is that the CART grant be accepted with the amendment of that the overhead would be reduced by 30%. This reduction to be accomplished by reducing the hours. There would be a report from DA to Judicial and Public Safety for the March meeting of where these cuts were made.
30% of what, I'm sorry?
Of the overhead of implementing the grant.
What is that number? You mean the total?
Right. I don't have the exact number, Mr. Chairman, but if the people that are working now were gonna cost $100,000, then their hours, their time, their pay would have to be reduced by 30%, thereby giving longer life to this $107,000 grant. less impact on the county.
Okay, is there a second? Mr. Whitman? Okay, I guess I don't quite understand, but well, let's talk about it. Is there any discussion? Yes.
What is the 30% of the amount? What amount is the 30% being applied to, so we know what the actual dollar amount is for that?
Susan should be able to answer that.
I don't have the actual dollar amount, Mr. Foley. But we know what it cost in salaries up until this point. The cost of the grant not being in place is approximately $35,000 to the county. So over this period of time, 30% of that would have been reduced. I'm sorry I don't have an exact number because I don't know I didn't do the math in my calculation. My thinking was that a 30% reduction in the overhead gives the DA room to move, continue the prosecutions that he's doing, and gives us the opportunity to look this over a little more before we actually pull the plug. It would be unnecessary to pull the plug at this time because of the fear of the county losing more money. I'm doing this with the hopes that we're able to continue this and accept next year's grant and the year after's grant and have the opportunity to see what the state is going to do April 1st. I think it's a major thing to continue this and not lose it all over a 6-month period of waiting.
So Mr. Farrell and then Mr. Mahunik.
I guess I would ask, and still trying to speculate on this figure that we're utilizing. The budget says the expenditures on the total grant sets it at $284,000. So are we going 1/3 of that budgeted figure of expenditures?
That was the expenditures of the grant for last year, Mr. Miller. Is that true? What we spent total?
Is that in this year's budget, or?
It's this year's budget.
That's in this year's budget. So 284,000? I should have brought a calculator.
You have it.
Let me get you one.
No, I can do it.
284,000.
So,
The salary should be $231,094 for the 2016 year under the grant.
What number are you coming up with?
okay, so, yeah, follow. Yeah. Ms. Mahunik, why we're the county taking our shoes off?
So we're looking at 30% of the salary, just the salary and fringe. Is that the amendment we're looking at, or are we gonna add in the professional service and conference fees that are in the budget as well? To that total?
I'm only looking at the salaries and fringe, that's where.
Oh, okay.
We ran over.
I get 85,200
Would be the cut?
would be the 30%.
Okay, and
Now
so that reduces the amount to, that reduces then, the salaries and fringes are how much?
Well, I have a figure of $197,250. That's based on the numbers and percentages that were given to me by the district attorney and the payroll staff.
So then that would take the cost, your motion then is to reduce the cost of the grant to $112,000 and change. Is that correct? Is that the motion?
That's motion.
Okay. Yeah, Ms. Mahunik?
Just to finish up my comments, I just we heard a lot about this grant in the last couple of days. I don't think anybody on this body does not want to prosecute crimes. I think we just want to do it in the most cost-effective and efficient manner. When I arrived on this board 8 years ago, the DA's budget was about $800,000. It's now $1.2 million a year. That's an increase of about 52%. So that being said, the DA said he came in $58,000 under budget last year. His budget line from 15 to 16 went up $120,000 in total. Take that $58,000 away, we're still up another $62,000. Program's going to cost money. It's going to cost county taxpayers money. We keep hearing about this $35,000 or $36,000 that it's going to cost. If you look at the total implementation of this project or this grant, it's gonna cost, if we pay that 35,000, we're still gonna save 70 grand to the county taxpayers. So this is not about profitability and prosecuting crime. This is about all of us looking at everything that we need to do to tighten up this budget, making the great decisions for all the taxpayers, because looking at taking on a hit like this, we're pretty much guaranteeing that we're gonna exceed the tax cap in the next upcoming budget year. The tax cap is extremely low. We need to make some significant cuts, and we just need to look at everything very carefully. So.
Thank you. Mr. Disick.
I think the discussion that we had a little while ago before this was that, I mean, public safety is important, so is fiscal responsibility. So in order to make this program work, because just like Mr. Moon said, I agree, we all agree, it's not like we don't want these people prosecuted for their crimes. But are you gonna take somebody who's frauded the system $400 and give them an attorney? Well, we're not making anything on that person. So does that sound good to say? Probably not. But the whole gist of it was to get Mr. Boodleman to, if this was gonna survive another day, to say, hey, here's what the grant is. I'm gonna try to get it to the grant, and let's make it fly. End of story. Where it's gone from an hour ago, I don't know, but that's where we were, so.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Foley.
Mr. Chair, I agree with Mr. Dennison. I think that, thanks, Mike. I think that it's reasonable if we were to say we want to get down to that $107,000, and if the DA can live within those means. Unfortunately, we have not seen a proposal that stays within that amount. If we did have something that showed us that, we could be considering that. Unfortunately, every proposal I've seen is over that amount. So, and I don't know how close this 30% comes to $107,000. So, you know, if we know that, or we have better numbers, someone's done the numbers, please present those to us. But, you know, I'm waiting to see those.
Yeah. Mr. Baxter.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not proposing that this $107,000 will go the entire year, and I'm not proposing that the cut of 30% will allow it to go the entire year. What I'm proposing is to take the 30% cut, utilize the $107,000 as long as it will last. At the end of the $107,000, if no money is forthcoming from the state in their budget, and no other grant is received to continue operating, then as we did when we first started this, it would be time to cut it. Because the agreement was that as long as the grant money was coming, we would continue the program. The $107,000 is there. Let's continue it for that amount of money. I suggested the cut to show that it would last a little longer and give the district attorney time to do grants, time to wait for the budget, and to continue the operations he's already started. If it runs out, we need to pull the plug.
Well, may I ask a question about, in terms of your thinking, because I'm trying to understand, because if part of the argument, and I think it's a sound argument, is we have 3 years of grants, and this is 3 years of certain grants. We don't even have to reapply, so I do understand that. But it's $107,000 for 3 years. It's not, you know, $280,000 for 3 years. It's $107,000. If that's an important part of the program, why not, if this is what y'all are getting at, why not say, okay, well, let's redo the budget, make it come out to about 107, you know, round it to 110, make it even, but why not come out to that range, redo the budget, make it work for 12 months, then if you get money later, you can always adjust what you're doing. Now you're being proactive with, we're gonna move forward with prosecution that everyone is saying is so important. We're gonna move forward with that now because it's important to keep it going. But we're not gonna live on a wish and a prayer. What we're gonna do is look at the resources we have, which are $107,000. We'll live within them. If more money comes in, we'll worry about that, what we can do with that later. why would that not be an approach, a better approach than simply saying we'll see how far it goes? Because the math would say it would last about 4 months, 35,000 at the 35,000 a clip, and if we cut by 30%, that's 100. That's just what it would look like it do. I understand the advantage, ma'am.
Well, one of the reasons that I would really like to get a calculator that produces a tape is I made a mistake on calculating.
Okay.
So-
That's fine, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't worry about it. Mr. Lattimore?
Mr. Chairman, I concur with Mr. Mahonik in regards to the budget, but I don't want to tie our department heads' hands in regards to the money. I'd rather say to Mr. Boodleman and the sheriff and any other department head, you know, we got a budget problem, we need to cut 10%. You guys figure out how you're gonna cut that 10% out of your budget. If the DA thinks that this program is worth its weight in gold, that they went out and secured grants from the state, then let him decide as to what his priority are in his department.
Okay. Mr. Pinckney, you had a comment?
No, I couldn't hear Suzanne.
Oh, she was just mumbling about the
Oh,
numbers.
that's all right. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Whitman?
I agree with Pat. We have to find cost-effective ways to work with our budget and cost-effective ways to prosecute and go after crime. Taking grant money to do so, I think, is a very cost-effective way to do this. As far as worrying about this and the tax cap, I think the tax cap is a whole nother argument in my ballpark. I am 100% for this program, grant money or not. As a taxpayer, and every taxpayer I know, at least up in the north end of the county, would like to, I have to believe I would be willing to spend a little money to prosecute people wasting my tax dollars. And I have to believe the people that voted me here to see after the spending of their tax dollars would feel the same way. I mean, even if we don't break even, I don't have an issue with it, with spending a little money. I think we're headed down a scary road. I've said it before. We're headed down a scary road if we're looking at going after and prosecuting crime as a revenue line in our budget. If it costs us money to do so, it costs us money to do so. It costs us money to do so in the sheriff's department. He doesn't bring in a revenue line for the county going after criminals. I don't think we can sit here and decide which crime is worse than others. It's crime. It's our DA's job to go after these criminals. And if we have a tool like this grant to help us do so, I think we'd be silly not to take advantage of it.
Ben?
I have not supported this grant proposal for some time, and one of the main reasons is that using the money until it runs out is not a good fiscally responsible way to do business. I wish there was another alternative to an amendment that gave Mr. Boodleman the time to present a budget that stays within the 107. And the reason for that is because I can't support something that's gonna run out and then we're not gonna have it for the next 2 years. Wouldn't it make much, much more sense to put a budget together that spends 107, and so that we can continue to get the following 107 for the following 2 years? It just makes a lot more sense in my mind to do it that way. As for the county spending money to prosecute crime, we do. We have a DA's budget, and that's what the DA's job is. The CARP grant gives us additional tools to do that work. And I would only support it if we could secure getting all 3 years worth of the grant. And I'm not gonna look at I refuse to look at something that is just gonna run out and then we're gonna have to have a discussion after that.
So, are you making an amendment to?
I'm not gonna make an amendment until either this amendment's off the floor or.
Well, that's not an amendment, because it was devoted at Ways and Means. The motion is to reinstate the CARP grant, a reduction of 30% of the, of I'm not sure what, but we'll clarify that. So that's the motion, because it was, that's a fresh motion. So we can amend that motion if someone wishes to do so. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, the reason I used what I did is because we're 2 months into this year already. If we do go by the $107,000 only, $35,000 of that has already been spent. That doesn't leave much for the rest of the year. The idea of getting it down to $107,000 guaranteed would be to me, would be really feasible in our next budget, so that we start the year already knowing that and not being already spent. A third of the grant is already gone.
All right, sir. Mr. Dennison?
I'd like to, I don't know, change Terry's amendment or whatever to the point that if Mr. Boodleman comes back showing that he can make this work for the amount that the grant amount is for, then we would accept it.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor to offer the amendment, that says that we would charge the district attorney to come back with a budget that would work within the amount of the grant.
But would we have to put a timeline on when for him to come back with that? Because obviously this needs to get done.
Yeah. Well, first, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. It's Mr. Pinckney.
I don't think.
Yeah,
we
there's
can
been a
amend
motion
the-
second.
amend
Roll call
the
vote,
amendment
please.
without-
No, that's what I'm saying. Look, it was defeated in committee, so there is no motion to amend. You brought up a new motion. Your motion was the motion that was defeated in committee with the amendment of 30%. That's the motion.
Right.
Now there's an amendment to that, which is that we would charge the district attorney not a 30% reduction, but to stay within the $107,000, 12 months of the grant, and come back with a budget. So that's now the motion and the amendment. That's
correct.
So if we want the well, yeah, okay. Just a couple more comments.
Parliamentary procedure, we got a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote on the 30%? And then see if that passes, and then?
No. There's a motion which says, here's the motion. I move that we accept the CARP grant, and the CARP budget reduced by 30%. That's the motion. Okay. There was a second. There's an amendment to that motion that says we charge the district attorney to develop a budget that stays within the grant amount, which is $107,000 and some change for 12 months. That was seconded. So that's a motion and the amendment. So that's where we are at this point.
Okay, roll call vote.
We're not voting. We're discussing. Ms. Farrell.
Mr. Chairman, part of the discrepancy that we've had all along is on the numbers. So when this resolution is passed, will there be a budget proposal brought back to us of 107 to approve? Or are you indicating that we're approving 107 and numbers will come back and it's an autonomy, it'll get passed? Because the dispute has been on the numbers.
Right.
So I don't mind the resolution, I'll support the resolution, but I would like to see that 107 in its entirety and then make the approval.
Okay. Do people want to see what the budget's going to look like?
Yes.
Okay. If people want to see what the budget looks like, there's only one way to do that. And I think I'll preface this by saying this is great. We've made real progress. I wish we would have made this progress earlier, but we're moving in the right direction. And so it's great. I think you're absolutely right. It's hard to vote on something that we don't understand in its entirety. It's hard to vote on something that we don't have specific kind of numbers for. You can't really vote on an intent. We intend to do something. So what I think we need to do is take some time. We'll charge the district attorney to, as that amendment suggests, to develop a budget that stays within the grant amount, to bring that back to us, and then we can review it and vote on it at that point. Then we'll have all the information. So what I propose we do is recess until Thursday, at which time we will hopefully have a proposal that uses $107,000, so we can accept the CARP grant, we know how it's going to be spent, and we can live within our budget. So at that point,
What time Thursday?
we're kind of recess until Thursday, March, whatever that is.
So you get to talk.
I think it's still February.
February, whatever that is. 25th? 25th at 6 p.m. So we're recessed until Thursday at 6 p.m.
Chairman, motion for executive session?
We'll have to handle that later, because we're in recess. So we will reconvene at 6 p.m. on Thursday, and Mr. Budeman, if we can get together before that, so that we can bring back a budget.
Pictures?
So we're doing pictures.
The other